This video is sponsored by SINoALICE. Hello everyone, my name is Musaki from the Gacha Gurus. Today we have an entirely different game to talk about that you may remember from a video that we made a few months ago. Surprisingly enough, as I mentioned earlier, this video is actually paid for and sponsored by the creators of SINoALICE. This is our first sponsored video, and I'm very happy that they reached out to me about this opportunity. Thank you so much, PokeLabo and Square Enix. The next thing you guys might be wondering,
Musaki is sponsored to talk about SINoALICE? There's no way it's gonna be genuine. He's sponsored after all.
well, that's when you're wrong. Paso-kun, Creed Keeper PT, and myself were very excited about the release of SINoALICE, especially because the previous developers that had SINoALICE put it on an indefinite hiatus just before launch for localization reasons. That all changed when the original JP developer, PokeLabo Inc., along with Square Enix, swooped in, picked up the localization, and released SINoALICE globally on July 1st, 2020. So now that 3 months has passed and I've finally got my hands on the game in full, played it as much as I wanted, and actually got to experience the game all at once, what do I think about it as one of the newer mobile games on the market? Well, let's talk about that. During this video, I'll actually talk about the minds behind SINoALICE, the story of the characters, general gameplay, the gacha, and a little bit of something extra. This video is sponsored after all, and the people who sponsored us has graciously given us some juicy information that has not yet been officially released. And at the end of this video, I will actually tell you what it is. Do I have your attention now? Well, let's not delay any longer. With this intro out of the way, let's jump into it. Let's start off with some info about SINoALICE. SINoALICE, if you haven't realized, is a mobile RPG for iOS and Android, produced by Square Enix and PokeLabo Inc. PokeLabo Inc. mainly develops games in Japan, so you may not have heard of them before, but I know you've heard of Square Enix. And not just anyone from Square Enix either. The producers behind SINoALICE, Shugo Maeda and Yosunari Fujimoto, teamed up with a director you may recognize, Yoko Taro. That's right, the man who hides his face behind the mask of Emil is the director of SINoALICE. So you know you're in for a wild ride. And honestly, that's one of the first reasons that I grew interested in the game. I'm a big fan of Nier Automata, but honestly, I first got into contact with Yoko Taro's work in the Drakengard series. Having played those games, I knew there was more than meets the eye with this new title. There's a lot more when it comes down to the specifics behind this game, how it was made, the philosophies behind it, and everything else, but I'll leave that for you to find out in the interviews. Trust me, they're freaking hilarious. The next thing I want to talk about is another aspect of SINoALICE that drew me in even further. The characters and the premise. We're thrown into a dark fantasy world called the Library. Each character you see is from a fairy tale of some sort. Alice from Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, and many more. Their goal, after being approached by two puppets, Para and Noya, is to slay all of these monsters known as nightmares that come before them to finally meet their Arthur, to possibly change their fate. Or perhaps they want to kill them instead. That right there is what hooked me and really reeled me in. Not to mention the art of these characters. You can denote a bit of the characters just by seeing the clothing that they wear, the expressions they have on their faces, the weapons they're using. You can see a lot of their characters there, and I had a lot of preconceived notions when I first saw them, but then when I played the game, I was Yoko Taro. Definitely completely different than what I thought. But before I get into the game, I honestly gotta talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack is the final piece to this Yoko Taro pie. It pulls you into the world. It instantly tells you, whoa, this isn't like most mobile games, is it? The soundtrack, it's so good. I've honestly used it to wind down from a long day of work. At least until my kids want apples and bananas. The composers that worked on the game consist of Keigo Hayashi, Shotaro Seo, and Keiichi Okabe, the latter of which has worked on music for the Tekken series, the Drakengard Nier series, and Fate Extella series. You can see why the music in this game is so good now, can't ya? The story, the characters, the music, and the fact that Yoko Taro is the director, I knew that I would love it. The next section we'll talk about what you'll see when you boot up the game, but don't worry, I haven't forgotten about that special bit of news that I mentioned earlier in the video. I haven't, trust me. Once we get to that point, I'll spill all the beans, so stay tuned. So anyway, let's not waste any time. Let's just boot up the game. Let's just boot up the game and get started. Wait, what's this rope? Oh, I guess I pull it down like this. Oh, those are books. Oh wait, this is the gacha. Oh, okay, cool. I kind of wish I could roll again. Wait, I can? I can just keep rolling? Rolling? God, what sorcery is this? I can just keep rolling forever and ever and ever? Yeah, you see this right. Right off the bat, you can just re-roll for as long as you want. You can tell Yoko Taro has an idea of how mobile game players are. I mean, how many videos have you seen on YouTube that show you how to re-roll your account to ensure you start off with the best tools possible? You don't need to do that here. Heck, even as they start you off, they give you a unit for free and tell you not to think about it too hard. Why? Because you can get these 4 units for free anyway in the story. Wow. Wish other games did that. So after you go through the tutorial and figure out how basic combat works, there are a few things you're going to notice. Your mailbox is going to have a ton of rewards in there from the pre-register campaign they had started before. A lot of these are materials, and you might not know what to do with them right now, but you do get a limited class unit and a nightmare. You know those monsters that you fight before? You actually can summon some of them in this world in battle. Speaking of battle, I may have glossed over combat just a little bit earlier, but that's because it really is rather simple. Unlike most gacha games, your unit is not the main source of your power. No, instead, that comes from your weapons you obtain from the gacha and the story. The stronger weapons that you have, the more damage your unit will do. Also, there is the simple elemental rock, paper, scissors mechanic that is pretty easy to figure out once you play with it. You tap on an enemy you want to attack, tap on a weapon you want to use, just repeat until you run out of SP or your weapons disappear from the bar. Once you run out of SP, you can refresh it fairly easily. If you run out of weapons to use, don't worry, there's also a reload button to hit and you'll get a new set of weapons. It's very easy to pick up and understand, and you'll see what I mean when you give it a shot. Another cool feature I want to talk about is the addition of co-op play. If you go into co-op mode, you can actually drop into other people's games and help them with the run. Whether that's an event node, a farming node, or a story chapter, you'll be there until the end of the current battle. Likewise, friends can just drop into your game and help you out too. I was actually on a voice call taking down a hard boss, and then Creed Keeper, who happened to be in the call with me, just jumped in to help me out because she's like way higher in levels than me. I was like, my god. The next thing that grabbed my attention when it came to the gameplay is the Colosseums and the guilds. You can make a guild in SINoALICE with up to 15 members, with the goal of challenging other guilds in the Colosseum. These are live fights and happen at a set time you can choose in your guild settings. After that, every day at that time, you will face off against a new guild. I found that this helped me push forward to grinding every day. I wanted to be strong enough for my guild so we can do well in these Colosseum fights. Though I do wonder if I can keep up since I do have other things to do in my life. You know what, and that's actually okay. So long as I have my gear set up on my character, the AI will take care of it for me when in a Colosseum fight. However, that isn't the best course of action and can sometimes hold back your guild overall. I suggest at least showing up and autoing there. That way, just in case things go south, you can assume direct control and help out. Though in typical Yoko Taro fashion, the odds are sometimes not in your favor. Some days you can have an overwhelming victory, other days you get curb stomped repeatedly into the ground. It can be rough for sure, but regardless you still actually get rewards, which Makes the pill go down a little bit better. Anyway, let's move on from the PvP talk and let's go ahead and speak on the story mode next. The story mode is broken up into acts. Each act has several characters in them with 4 chapters each, with one big chapter at the end to wrap up the act. Sometimes character chapters actually intertwine with each other. For example, Alice and Snow White actually share a chapter together. So if you complete it while going through the Alice story, when you start Snow White's story, the chapter will be complete for her as well. And you know how story goes in most other gacha games where, yeah, it can be actually really entertaining, really funny, engaging, but it just goes on and on and on and you just skip it because you want to get to the gameplay? Well, you don't have to worry about that here. The stories in SINoALICE are 1 page long. Each chapter will start with 1 page of spoken dialogue, giving you a bit of the character's mindset, motivation, and what they're currently doing. Sometimes there are a lot of words on the screen, and other times, you get small pieces like this. This was deliberate. The idea behind the gameplay was so that you can just pick it up and play and not worry about sitting there being chained to your desk, chained to your couch, your chair, what have you, going hours and hours with a story mode. You get a quick summary and you go. Heck, Yoko Taro doesn't even care if you read the story. There's an article on it. But I do suggest you at least check out the stories. There's a whole bunch of hidden gold in here that's really funny, really cool, and sometimes really unnerving. Anyway, remember earlier how I mentioned that this game will actually give you some characters for free in the story mode? You'll notice that some of the first chapters in a character story will reward a unit at the end of the first section of the chapter. Not the end of the chapter, the first section of the chapter. This allows you to pick and choose who you want your avatar of destruction to be from the start, and not have to worry about stats of each character or growth rates or anything like that. But if you think SINoALICE will only contain fairy tale characters, you are sorely mistaken. Because the next thing we're going to talk about is event collaborations. Back in July, not too long after SINoALICE's launch, 2 back-to-back collaboration campaigns were held. The first being Nier Automata, and the second being Nier Replicant. You heard me right. And this is all well and good. They normally give you a character for free in the events, in the story, but they don't give you everyone. There is still a gacha here. Now, the gacha in other games can be daunting and really salt-inducing, but not here. Every time you roll the Grimoire, which is the gacha for this game, you will get medals at the end of your rolls. If you roll enough, you can actually buy the unit or weapon you want that's in the pool with those medals. This also works with the current limited banners, by the way. Not only that, but you also have step-up banners some of the time, where you start small and work your way up with each 5 roll, then 10 roll, and at the end of it, you'll be rewarded with one of the rate of weapons, nightmares, or the specific class unit, like Cinderella dressed like a werewolf. What? That's freaking cute! Don't judge me! If you remember, I actually sang the praise of SINoALICE's gacha in an earlier video I made this year. I stand by that. The fact that I have not yet felt the need to pull out my wallet to roll in this game is great. So if you're afraid of being pulled into the gacha, never fear. You'll be fine here. Okay, you waited long enough. Before I give my overall thoughts on SINoALICE, I'll finally talk about that right now. I mentioned that story mode has acts earlier. As of now, we have 2 acts available to us, Act of Impulse and Act of Hatred. However, there are 2 more acts that are blank right now. One of them specifically is being filled with question marks. Well, thanks to our sponsors, I now know what's coming next. The next act that is coming to SINoALICE is the Act of Reality. The same fantasy characters I mentioned before appear in this act that are set in a modern world. For example, Alice from Alice in Wonderland has a new form, Alice Alternative. This form of Alice is a high schooler whose heart was broken by her married teacher. That's not even the only character who gets a modern makeover. The Little Mermaid, Red Riding Hood, Dorothy all get a modern look. It is actually really cool. The dark story elements that filled the other acts are still here as well. So just because Alice looks like a high school girl does not mean she won't slash the mess out of you with her giant sword, lance, or axe. Alice alternative you'll get for free in the story, but other characters will be available in the gacha. Red Riding Hood alternative will be there for the first banner, along with a new nightmare called Salaryman. Even the nightmares have a modern look to them. Hey, there's nothing scarier when you're staring down a salaryman who's down on his luck and you're in his way. So long as you completed Chapter 5 in Act of Hatred on normal, this new act will be available for you. You might be wondering to yourself, Musaki, this all sounds really interesting, but how long am I gonna have to wait for this? Is it gonna be weeks? Is it months? With everything going on, is it going to wait till next year to get this? Well, actually, no. It's not weeks, it's not months, it's days. That's right, October 30th, SINoALICE will go live with Act of Reality. And if you're behind or pretty new, don't worry. Acts themselves don't go away, and even if you wanted to try it out day one, honestly, just pick your favorite character in the story, finish their entire chapter down to 5, do that for the next act, and then you'll have it unlocked for you. I played a bit of it myself already, and it is really good. The music is great. I'm sucked in and invested to the story, and difficulty is a little tough. I actually kind of need to grind a bit. I wasn't kidding when I mentioned that Salaryman. He is truly fearsome. So we talked about the gacha, we talked about the story, co-op, coliseums, guilds, the characters, the weapons, the event, the brand new act that's coming out in 2 days, everything that has happened in the past 3 months, and so 3 months after the launch of SINoALICE. What do I think? Honestly, this is a game that I can casually pick up and put down so easy that it has never left my devices. I actually play it on both my iPad and my iPhone, so I can play it when I'm at home or play it when I'm on the go. I also like that I can just pick up this game and not have to worry about going full 40 chess mode and trying to plan out everything else. I know this may not be everyone's cup of tea, but for me, I go through a lot of stress, a lot of pressure in my everyday life. I don't want to be stressed or pressured playing a mobile game for fun. So if you enjoyed Yoko Taro's storytelling, a dark fantasy, beautiful characters, a wonderful soundtrack, SINoALICE is a game for you. If my take on SINoALICE has actually piqued your interest, you're in luck. Go ahead and click on the link in the description or in the pinned comment down below. You'll actually send you to download the game right now. Seriously, the Act of Reality is going to be a blast and you're going to enjoy yourself. Trust me, once you get into it, you'll see how this is not like most gacha games out there. If you like this video, definitely please give it a like. And on top of that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ringing that bell so you're notified when we upload next. Anyhow, my name is Musaki from the Chaldea Gurus. We're logging out, and remember, stay true to your story. See ya.